My mother is freezing, chained at the feet of the most ruthless man in the empire. The only way she lives is if I commit the ultimate betrayal, trading the Mountain Queen I swore to protect. I sold her out, delivered her in chains, and now I have seconds before the king sees the fake hinges on her manacles. Look at the tyrant. He's smiling. He thinks he won. But inside the walls, Leena's warriors are already at the drain tunnels. Which part of the plan breaks first? The lockpicks in the dungeon, or the chains in the throne room? If you believe sacrificing yourself for family is the ultimate act of courage, hit that subscribe button now and tell me why. The light of dawn was already creeping into the cave mouth, painting the whetstone with weak gold. We had talked too long. The revelations about Leena's kingdom, the moonflower, the obsessed explorer, and the poison dart had held me captive until the first bird song. I pushed myself up, feeling the leaden weight of days without sleep. I stepped out. The forest was silent, unnaturally so, devoid of the usual sounds of wind in the pines or scampering prey. I spun around, my hand going to the empty space where my dagger should have been. Then I saw them. 3 dark silhouettes standing among the trees, perfectly still, like monuments carved from shadow. King Theron's hunters. They had tracked us through the rain. Leena surged past me, her heavy, spotted tail low, her feline hands raised defensively. One of the men, a tall brute wrapped in black leather, raised a narrow wooden tube to his lips. "Leena, look out!" I roared. But the flash of movement was too fast. It wasn't the dart. Leena was no longer beside me. She was behind the hunter. A wet, tearing sound was swallowed by the sudden silence. The man pitched forward into the wet undergrowth, his throat ripped open. The remaining hunter, calmer, took a step back, raising his hands in a gesture of non-combat. He was older, his face etched with cold competence. He offered a chilling smile. "Kael," he said, his voice flat, cutting through the mountain air like ice. "We have a message from King Theron." My chest constricted. I knew exactly what he was going to say. "Your mother is in the dungeons of the citadel alive for now," the hunter continued, his eyes locked on Leena. "Hand over the mountain cat, and she lives. Refuse, and we will hang her in the square before the entire city of Athoria. It's your choice, Kael." The hunter waited just long enough for the words to sink in the sound of her name, the vision of her thin, sick body dangling above the cobblestones. Then he turned and vanished into the trees as silently as he had appeared. "I have to go," I gasped, spinning around. "Now, I have to go back. It is suicide," Leena said, her voice dropping to a firm, commanding purr, her green eyes wide and startling against the dawn light. She seized my arm with surprising strength. "You will arrive alone at the palace. They will kill you before you even reach the gates, and then they will kill her anyway. This is what Theron wants. I don't care. She is my mother. I led them to her. And you will die, and so will she, if we act like fools." Her grip tightened. "Listen to me, Kael. We are only 3 days from the winding peaks, from Valen'dar. My father is the king." The word hit me like a physical blow. "King. Your father?" I stammered. "You said you were a princess. My mother died years ago protecting the kingdom's secrets. Now, I am the queen," she stated, devoid of pride, only fierce urgency. "My father, the former king, has warriors, the best. They can infiltrate the citadel. They can bypass the walls Theron thinks are unassailable. We can rescue your mother. But I must get home first." I looked into the wild determination of her eyes, seeing the regal power shining beneath the cloak of the escaped prisoner. The time we had lost was measured in my mother's remaining breaths. "We don't have time," I shouted. Desperation, overwhelming my tactical mind. "You will make it in time, I promise you," she insisted, her feline features softening slightly. "But you have to trust the plan, Kael. Trust me. We use my people's strength to beat his. He wants me in chains, and I will give him exactly what he wants, a distraction." I swallowed, the guilt warring with the cold, pragmatic logic of the Mountain Queen. The fate of my mother, and perhaps the fate of the Queen's hidden kingdom, hinged on my willingness to embrace a betrayal far greater than the one King Theron believed had already happened. "All right," I said, the word a heavy stone in my throat. "I had to give up my dignity for my mother's life. If you've ever had to make a tough choice for someone you love, let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more. Let's go." North. We run until we reach your father. We ran north, pushing ourselves past exhaustion, driven by the dual specters of King Theron's hunters at our backs and my mother's chain in the dungeons of Ethoria. Leena led us instinctively, her knowledge of the mountain passes absolute. Every hour was a desperate trade of distance for energy. The mountains began to shrink everything else around them. After 3 days of punishing ascent, the winding peaks rose before us, colossal black teeth tearing at the cloud cover. The air immediately grew thinner, biting and sharp. "The gorge of 1,000 winds," Leena gasped, pointing towards a narrow, treacherous cleft in the rock face that seemed to funnel the mountain gale. "Beyond that, we are home. Only my people can cross it quickly." We entered the gorge. The wind was a physical force, a constant, howling presence that battered my ears and threatened to tear us from the narrow path. Soon, the oxygen became dangerously scarce. My head swam, my limbs felt heavy and useless, my lungs burning with every futile attempt to draw a full breath. I stumbled, tasting copper. "Stop, Kael. You will die before we reach the summit." Leena's eyes were wide with genuine fear for me. Before I could protest, she stripped off her heavy outer garment, knelt and gestured sharply. "Climb on. I will carry you." I was too weak to argue, too dizzy to feel shame. I clung to her back, my world narrowing to the painful throb of her muscles beneath me and the rhythmic, desperate thump of her heart. The last thing I registered was the blinding whiteness of the snow, the scream of the wind, and Leena's tireless, bounding ascent. I woke to warmth and silence. I lay on soft furs. The scent of wood smoke and a strange, sweet incense filled my senses. When I managed to sit up, I realized the light wasn't filtering through a cave entrance. It was emanating from glowing crystals embedded in a ceiling of carved stone. I had crossed. I was in Valen'dar. I walked outside and stopped dead. It wasn't a village or a settlement. It was a civilization. I stood on a massive stone bridge that connected vertical rock walls, rising hundreds of meters high. The entire gorge had been transformed. Towers, terraces, and winding walkways were carved directly into the living stone, spiraling upward like giant, impossible trees. Bridges flowed between the cliffs like roots, feline humanoids, resembling Leena but in various stages of dress and armor, moved everywhere. They were the most beautiful and fearsome people I had ever seen. They glanced at me with curiosity and, sometimes, open suspicion. Leena appeared from a thick curtain of mist, wearing simple traveling clothes and an ornate silver bracelet, but still possessing the raw power of the predator. "Welcome to my home, Kael," she said, her voice resonant in the silent space. 2 guards, taller and more heavily armored than any I had seen, immediately materialized and knelt before her. Their golden armor gleamed. "My queen, Leena," they whispered reverently. I stared at her. The guards called her queen. "Leena," I whispered, "the guards called you queen. Weren't you a princess?" She stopped, turning fully to face me. The noise of the city, the shouts of children and the clang of artisans, faded away. She met my gaze, the truth shining, undeniable, in her green eyes. "My father is the king, yes, but my mother, the queen, died protecting the kingdom years ago," she said simply. "I am the Queen of Valen'dar. I have carried that title and this duty since the day I was taken." I felt the ground shift beneath me. I hadn't merely saved a princess. I had delivered the captive monarch of a colossal, hidden empire. The magnitude of her sacrifice and her trust in me crushed the last vestiges of my previous life. I was no longer a simple man running from the king. I was walking beside a queen who held the power to destroy everything King Theron stood for. "We must go," Leena said, touching my arm lightly, pulling me from my shock. "My father is waiting in the palace, and your mother, Kael, will wait only as long as we make her." We walked faster, deeper into the wonders of the city carved from rock, toward the royal heart of Valen'dar. We moved quickly through the upper tiers of Valen'dar. Below us, in a vast, open arena carved into the gorge, mountain cat warriors trained among immense, shaggy beasts, mammoths, which I thought were extinct. They dodged charging tusks and practiced leaping strikes, building strength and endurance. "They train like this?" I asked, breathless, watching one warrior narrowly avoid being crushed. "We are mountain cats," Leena replied, her focus absolute. "Sometimes one ends up crushed, but it ensures the rest are lethal. We must hurry. The palace is just ahead." The palace was not a single structure, but an extension of the mountain itself, a series of soaring towers and immense halls hewn directly from the black rock. Leena led me into the throne room. It was vast, lit by glowing seams of ore in the stone walls. At the far end, seated on a simple, massive obsidian throne, was a regal figure, Leena's father, the king. He was older, his face lined with grief and worry, but his feline eyes were the same piercing green as his daughter's. He saw us and froze. Leena. His voice was a ragged sound. Leena ran forward. The two embraced, the king trembling, tears welling in his eyes. "I thought you were dead, daughter," he whispered. "I was a prisoner, father. This human, Kael, freed me. He saved my life." The king pulled back slowly and approached me. He placed a heavy, reassuring hand on my shoulder. "I owe you everything, human. What do you need?" "My mother," I said, the words urgent. "King Theron has her prisoner. If I don't hand over Leena, he will kill her." The king's face hardened, the look of a worried father, replaced instantly by the fury of a betrayed monarch. "Theron. That monster had you all this time." "Yes," Leena confirmed. "Then we will move. We will rescue your mother, and I will make Theron pay for what he did to my daughter and my people." He turned to his guards. "Summon the best warriors. We leave at dawn." "Father," Leena interrupted, stepping forward. "I have a plan." Later that evening, we gathered in a private dining hall. The table was laden with food I couldn't name, exotic fruits, roasted meats, and crystal goblets filled with rich, golden liquid. Leena was now wearing a ceremonial tunic with white and gold embroidery, and I had been given clean, soft clothes that felt luxurious after weeks in rags. I still felt conspicuously human. "I will turn myself in," Leena announced, taking a slow sip from her goblet. The king frowned, setting down his wine. "What? A fake surrender?" "With chains I can break," Leena elaborated, her voice precise and deadly. "Kael will take me to Theron as if he had recaptured me, a traitor returning his trophy. While Theron is distracted, your warriors, the best of Valen'dar, will infiltrate the palace and rescue Kael's mother. When I hear the chaos, I break the chains. We reunite, we escape." "It's suicidally risky," the king countered, though the fire of interest was in his eyes. "It is the only way," Leena insisted. "Theron wants me. He won't allow Kael's mother to be killed until he sees me safely chained before him. That buys your warriors the time they need to reach the dungeons." The king looked at me, a silent question passing between us. "Do you trust my daughter with your life, human?" "With my life, yes. And with my mother's," I replied without hesitation. The king nodded slowly, a massive weight of decision settling on his shoulders. He turned to an advisor standing near the archway. "Prepare the fake chains, and bring the antidote." "Antidote?" I asked, glancing at Leena. The explorer who captured Leena used a powerful neurotoxin, extracted from a flower, the king explained grimly. "If Theron still has it, he will use it again to ensure her compliance. The antidote will protect her against the strongest dose." Leena met my gaze, a flicker of something ancient and unyielding in her eyes. "They won't capture the Queen of the Mountain Cats twice." With the plan set, the tension did not ease, but rather sharpened into a single, terrifying point. The mission to save my mother would now risk the Queen and the stability of her entire Hidden Kingdom. Everything depended on my performance as a convincing traitor. The palace room had been warm, but the courtyard at dawn was freezing. Leena was waiting, wearing dark, simple traveling clothes. The fake chains, crafted in Valen'dar, hung heavy and ominous from her wrists. They looked brutally real. "Ready?" I asked, adjusting the brown traveler's cloak around my shoulders. "Always," she replied, her face a mask of resolute composure. Leena's father, the king, emerged to give the final commands. He stood before his elite warriors, silent, agile figures in light armor, chosen for their stealth and lethality. "You will reach the palace in 2 days. You will scale the rear wall where it overlooks the ravine. The drainage tunnels there are your entrance. You, Kael, will take Leena through the main gate as a prisoner. Understood?" "Understood," I confirmed, feeling the immense weight of the deception. The king looked at his daughter, his only heir. His voice broke slightly. "If anything goes wrong, my queen." "I know, father." "Break everything," Leena finished for him, returning his hug with fierce strength. "I will come home." We parted ways. The warriors moved like dark mercury, dissolving into the mountain shadows towards the steep ravine side of King Theron's citadel. Leena and I, bound by the length of the fake chain, descended the hill towards the immense, looming main gate. The guards saw us first. A shout echoed off the black, ice-coated walls. More guards flooded the perimeter, surrounding us immediately, spears leveling. "I bring the beast," I announced, keeping my voice steady, hardened with manufactured malice. "I demand to see the king." A captain, his eyes wide with recognition and venom, approached. "It's her, the mountain cat who broke out of Blackstone Keep." "Yes," I spat, forcing the lie. "And I'm returning her, in exchange for my mother's freedom." The guards parted. We were escorted through the courtyard, past ranks of soldiers whose stares were weapons of pure hatred. They took us inside through vast, echoing hallways, up grand stairs, and finally, into the throne room. At the far end, upon the iron throne, sat King Theron, massive in his heavy armor, his scarred face hidden beneath a stern helmet. "The beast," he snarled, his voice grave, full of obsessive triumph. "I thought I would never see you again." Leena kept her head bowed, playing the role of the defeated prize. Theron descended from the dais, stopping directly in front of her. "Beautiful," he whispered, leaning in. "Even now, in chains." He turned to me, his suspicion immediate. "Tell me, traitor, how did a simple man like you manage to chain her? She can tear you apart without blinking." The fate of 2 kingdoms hinged on my next words. "She trusted me, sire," I said. "Maddox some of the sot. I said it comes to be Amazon." Looking him in the eye, the betrayal tasting like ash. "After the rescue, we traveled together. When I received your message from the hunter, I drugged her drink and chained her while she slept. Your compassion is her weakness, your grace. She believed my loyalty." Theron's smile was thin, cruel, and terrifying. "Smart. You betrayed her trust, just as she betrayed mine." But then his eyes drifted to the chains, and the doubt returned, like a cold fog. He turned to a nearby guard. "Check those chains. Make sure they are solid." Then, he roared to his lieutenants. "Prepare the darts with the mountain cat poison now." Meanwhile, in the darkness below, Leena's warriors had reached the rear wall. They found the drainage tunnel entrance, barely visible hundreds of meters up the sheer rock face above the ravine. Silent as shadows, claws digging into the stone, they entered the tunnel, the smell of damp earth and mold overwhelming them. They were in. They were moving, crouched low, toward the dungeon level, seconds away from the iron-barred corridor where Kael's mother lay waiting. The fate of the entire plan was now split between the glint of a dagger in the dark tunnel and the cold, careful inspection of a chain in the king's throne room. The guard finished his meticulous inspection of the chains. He ran his calloused fingers over the carefully disguised breaks and clasps crafted by the artisans of Valen'dar. He yanked one link, testing its strength. It held firm. "They are solid, your grace," the guard reported. "True iron." "The beast is secured." King Theron relaxed marginally, a vile satisfaction spreading across his scarred features. He motioned to the men, holding the poison darts. "Prepare the sedation. We will interrogate her for the location of her den, and then we will break her spirit." He turned back to Leena and me. "You, Kael, have bought your mother 3 more hours of life. Where is she?" "I want to see her first," I demanded. "Proof of good faith." Theron laughed, a harsh barking sound. Such predictable sentiment. A traitor worried about his old mother. "Very well. Bring the woman up to the battlements so this fool can see her before his beast is put to sleep." At that exact moment, down in the black, fetid depths of the citadel dungeons, Leena's warriors reached the end of the drainage tunnel. They moved like the wind, feline shadows in the torchlight. They came upon the first guard patrol. A silent, terrifying efficiency followed, a dagger to the throat, a snap of the neck. The guards fell without so much as a sigh. They checked the cells, moving fast. Empty, empty, empty. Finally, they reached the farthest cell. Inside, huddled on the cold stone, was a frail, filthy woman. "Are you Kael's mother?" one warrior whispered urgently. She lifted her head, pale and weak. Who are you?" "We are here to rescue you. Your son is above with our queen." A warrior produced a lockpick. Seconds later, the iron door swung open. Kael's mother tried to stand, but her legs instantly gave way. "I can't walk," she mumbled. "It doesn't matter." The warrior swept her up into his arms, tying her securely to his back with a sling. They ran towards the tunnel entrance. Just as they disappeared into the darkness, a startled shout echoed from an upper corridor. Alarm! Intruders in the dungeons. The traitor's mother is gone. In the throne room above, King Theron heard the distant, terrified shout. His head snapped toward me, then to Leena. His eyes, already narrowed with suspicion, widened into utter fury. "Betrayal," he roared, a sound that shook the high ceiling. He lunged back to his throne, pulling a massive execution sword from its sheath. Leena tensed. The sound of stressed metal was a high-pitched, agonizing screech. "The darts," Theron screamed at his men. "Sedate the beast now." Before the men could move, before Theron could raise his blade fully, the fake chains exploded from Leena's wrists. The crafted hinges burst apart, sending shrapnel flying. She was free. Theron pivoted, sword raised, aimed squarely at my heart, but Leena was already in motion, a streak of spotted brown and predatory grace. She moved faster than a striking viper, a silent blur toward the king. Clang! The king was a second too slow. Leena's claws, extended barely a millimeter, raked across the exposed flesh of his face, bypassing his helmet. His eye exploded in a sickening flash. Theron screamed, dropping his sword, clapping both hands to his face, as blood poured between his armored fingers. Leena grabbed me from the ground. The window. "Kael, now!" We ran across the great hall, leaping over the dropped sword and scattered guards. She smashed through a massive stained glass window that overlooked the battlements. We plunged onto the stone walkway below, guards shouting in stunned confusion on both sides. "Jump!" Leena yelled. She leaped again, this time off the high battlement and into the darkness of the ravine side. We fell together, crashing hard among the thick, snow-covered trees below the fortress walls. We rolled, scrambling up, running blindly as the king's broken. Enraged roar echoed from the tower far above. "Mobilize the army. I want that beast dead, and the human with her." The palace gates opened, and the ground began to tremble. It was the sound of thousands of soldiers, infantry, cavalry, and the groan of great siege machines being mobilized for immediate war. We had bought my mother's freedom, but we had just triggered the apocalypse. We didn't slow our pace until we heard the distant, triumphant shout of a mountain cat warrior. We burst through a thicket of white pines and crashed into a clearing where Leena's elite squad was waiting, their faces grim but victorious. Standing beside the lead warrior, wrapped securely in a thick Valen'dar blanket, was my mother. "Mother." I stumbled forward, collapsing onto my knees beside her. She looked shockingly thin, her skin almost translucent, but her eyes, my mother's eyes, were open, fixed on me with tired relief. "Kael," she whispered, her voice fragile as old glass. "You are hurt." "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. We're safe now." I hugged her gently, overwhelmed by the rush of relief and guilt. "We're getting you home." Leena knelt beside us, her face streaming with sweat, her heart rate still frantic from the escape. She nodded to the warrior who had carried my mother. "She needs to be moved quickly. She needs the healers of Valen'dar now." The reunion was brutally short. We were celebrating a victory in the shadow of a colossal disaster. Already, the low, powerful rumble of the oncoming army was vibrating through the ground, a sound felt more in the chest than heard with the ears. We moved immediately, the warriors setting an incredible, disciplined pace. They treated my mother with utmost care, using a specially designed stretcher slung between two powerful figures. As we fled back toward the sanctuary of the Winding Peaks, I looked back toward the capital, Athoria. The sheer scale of King Theron's mobilization was terrifying. He was not sending a hunting party. He was sending a nation. The entire army was a moving tide of iron and fury. Thousands of infantry marched in tightly packed ranks, their spears held high, reflecting the setting sun. Cavalry streamed out from the flank, a relentless torrent of horses and steel. I could see the massive, grotesque silhouettes of his siege machines, trebuchets, and heavy catapults being slowly hauled across the plains by lines of oxen and forced laborers. Theron was not interested in a capture. He intended annihilation. He wanted to wipe the mountain cat kingdom from the face of the earth for the betrayal and, worse, for the blinding wound Leena had inflicted. I realized the king himself was among them. A massive, heavily armored figure, his silhouette dark against the firelight of the camp they were already establishing on the plains. Even from this distance, you could sense the wounded animal rage emanating from his command tent. He would not stop. He could not. The blow to his vanity and his body was too great. "They will catch us before we reach the gorge walls," I told Leena, my voice hollow. The distance was too great, the speed of the professional army too fast. "No," Leena stated, her eyes fixed on the distant dark peaks. "We only need to reach the boundary of the winding peaks. They are sacred ground. Theron's army will stop. They have never stopped for anything. He's dragging catapults." "They will stop," she repeated, her gaze hardening, her attention on the immense, dark mass of the mountains ahead. "They stop, or they will face the only power King Theron has never been able to defeat." The promise of that unseen power was the only thing that kept my feet moving. We pushed through the night, the rumble of Theron's advancing military machine, a terrifying heartbeat behind us. We raced toward the towering gates of the winding peaks, praying we would cross that invisible line of protection before the entire wrath of an empire slammed into us. We reached the high entrance to the winding peaks just as the first light of dawn revealed the plain behind us. The king's advance guard cavalry scouts were already in sight. Our warriors melted away, covering our entrance into the colossal, mist-shrouded valley that led to Valen'dar. We carried my mother deep into the hidden city, straight to the central healing chambers. But there was no time for relief. The rumbling behind us had intensified into a thunderous, relentless roar. We reached a high battlement carved into the inner gorge wall. From this vantage point, we could see the unbelievable. King Theron's army had established a vast siege line just outside the invisible boundary of the peaks. The king, his helmet removed to reveal a blood-soaked cloth covering the blinding wound where his eye had been, sat atop his warhorse. His rage was palpable, a dark force pressing against the air. He gave the order. The sound was deafening. Every siege machine, the trebuchets, the catapults, the heavy crossbows, fired simultaneously. Massive stones and explosive charges soared in high arcs, not aimed at the entrance to Valen'dar, but at the sheer, sacred mountain peaks surrounding the gorge. "Crash! Boom!" the mountains screamed back. Rock faces fractured, avalanches of snow and ice poured down, and plumes of dust erupted from the explosions. Theron was deliberately desecrating the land, testing the limits of the ancient wild force Leena had warned of. Inside the palace, panic began to rise among the non-warriors. Leena seized my hand. "Come, the ritual has begun." We descended into the deepest, oldest part of the palace, a vast cavern where the air was thick with smoke and the scent of primal power. In the center, on a raised dais of raw obsidian, Leena's father, the king, stood with a dozen elder shamans. They were chanting in a low, guttural, ancient language, their bodies swaying in rhythmic agony. The king held a massive, glowing shard of crystal, the moonflower shard that had brought Leena out of her kingdom and into captivity. He raised it high, the stone vibrating with furious energy. "They attack the stone, they attack the spirit." The king's voice boomed, amplified by the cavern's echo. "Awaken, ancient one. Rise and swallow the enemy of the mountain cats." Outside, the bombardment intensified. The entire cavern began to shake, dust raining down. I could hear the terrifying crack of the outer mountain structure beginning to give way. A brilliant, terrible light erupted from the king's crystal. It shot upward through seams in the rock, piercing the ceiling. Simultaneously, from the deepest core of the mountain, a sound arose that was not thunder or explosion, but a massive, enraged sigh. The mountain spirit had awakened. We raced back to the high battlement. What we saw was not snow or rock, it was a cataclysm. The sacred peaks, where Theron's missiles had struck, didn't collapse. They erupted. Not with fire, but with sheer, raw earth energy. A shockwave of solid stone and crystallized wind tore through the valleys. The ground liquefied beneath the king's army. Thousands of soldiers, horses, and the heavy siege machines were instantly swallowed into a churning, violent mudslide of rock and snow. King Theron, paralyzed by the sight, screamed a command, but it was too late. The earth rose up a massive, tidal wave of mountain, ice, and power that engulfed the entire formation, burying every man, every machine, every shred of the kingdom's greatest military force in a single, annihilating stroke. Then, there was silence. The dust settled. The valley floor was smooth, desolate, and empty. King Theron and his army were gone. Leena slowly lowered her head, resting it against my shoulder, breathing in the quiet of the victorious mountain. The external threat was eliminated, completely and utterly. We were safe. The price of that safety had been the full unleashing of the Earth's rage. That was the most epic revenge in the history of the Empire. If you loved watching Theron get swallowed by the mountain, smash the like button and subscribe for more fantasy epics. 2 weeks passed in a silence so profound it felt like a healing balm. The rumble of King Theron's army, the shriek of the mountain's fury, all had faded into the realm of violent, impossible history. I sat beside my mother in the high, quiet healing chamber of Valen'dar. The room was bathed in the soft glow of crystal lights, and the air smelled of mountain herbs and pure water. She was sitting up, her color restored, the sickly pallor gone, replaced by a strength I hadn't seen since I was a boy. The healers of the mountain cats were miraculous. "You look like yourself again," I whispered, taking her hand. She smiled, a genuine, untroubled smile. "It feels like 100 years since I was last warm, Kael. The cold of that dungeon, it's gone now." A question hung unspoken between us, the true price of our freedom. Where would we go? We had no home left in Ethoria. "We are safe here," she said, preempting my thought. "They are good people, Kael. Fierce, yes, but honorable. They saved me because you saved their queen. And the king is gone, truly gone. There is nothing left for us in the kingdom of men." She squeezed my hand. "I want to stay. I want to learn the language of the mountains, to watch Leena's children grow up, if she ever has them. I want peace." Relief flooded me, immense and absolute. I didn't have to choose between her safety and Leena. "Then we stay," I confirmed, a profound finality in the words. "This is our home now." Later that night, I found Leena on a small, secluded balcony carved high into the mountain face. The air was cool and crisp, and below, the glowing city of Valen'dar looked like a constellation of captured stars. The absolute quiet here was intoxicating. She wore her royal mantle now, a cloak of thick, silvery fur that flowed around her, but she looked as raw and magnificent as she had in chains. "You are thinking about the sacrifice," she stated, not turning around, her voice soft. "I am thinking about the price," I admitted, walking up beside her. "We unleashed a god to kill a king. We destroyed an entire army. I am safe, my mother is safe, but what now?" She finally turned, her powerful green eyes holding mine. There was no apology for the destruction, only the unwavering certainty of a monarch defending her people. "What now is peace, Kael? And freedom? And duty?" She stepped closer, placing a warm, feline hand on my cheek. The movement was simple, but the current of intimacy that ran between us was electric. "When you came back to Theron with me on that chain, you risked everything for my people and your mother," she murmured. "You chose us. You belong here. I didn't just save a man. I saved the one I trust, the one who understands what it means to choose duty over life." I reached out, running my thumb gently across the spot where the scars had been on her wrist. The old wounds were gone, healed completely. "And what does that mean for us?" I asked, finally voicing the question that had been building since the day we met. Leena smiled, a slow, genuine parting of her lips that carried the warmth of the sun and the danger of the mountain. "It means that you will not ask me that question," she said softly, leaning into me, closing the distance completely. "It means that you already know the answer. And I have something much more important to tell you than a reply to a question already answered." She held my gaze, her breath sweet and close. "I have an important message for my people," she whispered, "and you will be the first to hear it." Thank you for watching to the end. I believe you enjoyed it. We have a lot of other interesting stories like this lined up for you already, so click the image showing on your screen to watch the next. Don't forget to subscribe.